Now that the 2022-23 season is officially in the rearview mirror, I decided that it was time to go over the top jerk moments from the postseason. Even though, obviously, the playoffs is the most intense hockey that we as fans get to observe, it tends to be pretty varied when it comes to jerk moments. However, this year offered up, in my opinion, more of a selection than normal. In this video, we're going to go over several jerk moments that are ranked until we get to number 1. And with that, here are the top 8 jerk moments of the 2023 postseason. It's probably not a huge shocker to see Matthew Tkachuk yet again making a jerk moments list. However, it was more shocking when it came to the fact that Tkachuk and the Panthers were not only able to beat the Boston Bruins, but also to make the Stanley Cup Finals. And it was during Game 1 of the series between the Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights that Tkachuk indeed lost his composure. By the time the latter stages of the third period rolled around, it's highly possible that for Tkachuk, frustration had seeped in due to the scoreboard. As the Knights were on the power play, Alex Pietrangelo attempted to get something going by attempting a shot near the crease in the Panthers' end. And it was during the play that the defenseman made some brief contact with Florida's netminder. Tkachuk, who witnessed it, decided to send Pietrangelo a message, which allowed for a scrum to ensue. But it was during the scrum that Tkachuk lost control and decided to Nicholas HAGUE in the face, who was tied up by an official. Due to his actions, Tkachuk was ejected from the contest due to receiving a double minor penalty for roughing on the play. Imagine this, you've recently signed your first NHL contract, and you're pumped to get to make your NHL debut days later. You're even given the opportunity to play for your new team in the postseason. However, in your 7th postseason appearance, a veteran player decides to play on the edge, causing you to be injured and to exit the game. And for rookie Matthew Knies, this is exactly what happened last season in a nutshell. After the first half of the opening period of Game 1 between the Leafs and Panthers, Sam Bennett decided to hit his opponents. However, there were just a few things wrong with how Bennett went about it. Firstly, Bennett appears to take one arm and shove Knies directly after he slams the forward's head into the boards and punches him for good measure before slamming him down to the ice. Unfortunately, no call was made on the play, and Bennett received no supplementary discipline either. Even though NHL players' safety didn't seem to notice what happened, the players did, and had their own opinions about the incident. "We would have liked to have seen a penalty on it," Ryan O'Reilly says. "I didn't love it, obviously," Captain John Tavares revealed. Bennett himself had his own thoughts about what happened. "I think he tried to hit me and jumped out of the way. He got tied up in my arm there. That was pretty much it on that one," he says. As most of us can recall that watched the Vegas-Edmonton series, it was a series that had a lot of intensity to go around, and by the latter part of the final frame of play, that intensity came to a head. After Vegas had pulled their goaltender in hopes of evening the score, DRAISAITL managed to steal the puck and attempted to get an empty netter. After shooting it wide in the Knights' end, Alex Pietrangelo, who had been closely behind his opponent, decided to take his frustrations out on DRAISAITL, as the defenseman could be shown taking a two-handed swing at the forward, which instantly caused him to drop to the ice. You know it's bad when Captain Connor McDavid decides to go after you in retaliation. In result, Pietrangelo received in-game discipline that amounted to a 5-game major and a game misconduct. Unfortunately for him, NHL player safety also had its own sentence to dish out in the form of a 1-game suspension. Now, this particular jerk moment I noticed wasn't really talked about as much as most of the others, probably due to the fact that, surprisingly, this one only resulted in a fine. Anyways, in the opening period of Game 3 between the Devils and Hurricanes, Sebastian Aho fell victim to a dangerous play that transpired in the Canes' end. Directly after, Thomas Tatar was unable to score on an attempt. He decided to launch his stick directly into Aho's head forcefully. Tatar, who was apparently a loose cannon, lost it on his opponent following a brief shoving match between them, and his response was to take a swing at his head. Luckily for Tatar, though, he was only given a fine in the amount of $5,000 for high sticking. When the news came about that Toronto and Tampa would indeed be matched up again in the first round, It was expected to be a rather scrappy series, due to the fact that both teams have formed a decent rivalry over the years after clashing frequently in the postseason. And Leafs forward Michael Bunting proved spectators correct, that yet indeed these two teams hate each other. Bunting, who has gained the reputation of being a referee's worst nightmare, was able to draw a penalty early on in the opening contest. However, Bunting found himself being on the other side completely when it came to the hit he threw on CERNAK. Bunting, who was hanging around near Tampa's net, decided he'd had enough of CERNAK shadowing him and decided to acquaint his elbow with the defenseman's head. CERNAK, who appeared shaken up on the play, was helped off of the ice by teammates as Bunting awaited his fate. Pretty much as soon as Bunting was ejected from the game, the hockey world was expectant that he would be suspended thereafter, and unsurprisingly, Bunting was dealt a 3-game suspension for his actions. For Toronto fans, this almost felt like deja vu. After witnessing Nazem Kadri snapping when it mattered most on multiple occasions, just like Kadri before him, Bunting was unavailable for his team due to a selfish play. NHL player safety deemed it an illegal check to the head. For most of us watching, it was a surprise to see the Seattle Kraken defeat the 2022 Stanley Cup champs. And it was also a shocker that Cale Makar decided to uncharacteristically pull a move that Brad Marchand or Tom Wilson would be more likely to do. Closely to the halfway point of the first period of Game 4, play quickly came to a standstill. Reason being, Jared McCann seemed to be in immense discomfort after falling victim to a careless play from Makar. After McCann's attempt at putting his team ahead by 2 in South, things continued to look worse for the forward. Makar, who wasn't able to get a defensive position onto McCann, probably felt some frustration as he decided to take it out on his opponent. Shortly after McCann took the wrist shot, Makar skated up behind him and shoved his head into the boards with purpose. Even though Makar only received a minor penalty for the hit in-game, it was only the beginning when it came to the punishment he received, as Makar was given a 1-game suspension from player safety for interference. Makar post-game seemed to deny that anything he did was wrong by saying, "I didn't feel like I tried to finish him that hard. I feel like if they were in that scenario, they would have done the exact same thing. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. It's just unfortunate," he says. As I mentioned before, the Oilers and Knights clashed mightily last postseason, and unsurprisingly, one player that was in the middle of most of the extracurriculars was Evander Kane. In the winding minutes of the second period, it quickly became clear that the Knights were feeling some frustration due to the fact that Edmonton had managed to score 5 goals prior to. Following the scuffle between Brett Howden and Brett Kulak transpiring, even more chaos ensued thereafter. With multiple players grabbing a dance partner, it quickly became impossible for officials to maintain order, and it was during this time that Kane was able to get some cheap shots in on a defenseless Keegan KOLESAR. As KOLESAR was down, Kane could be shown unloading on KOLESAR, who was obviously vulnerable. In result, Kane was given a double minor for roughing and received no supplementary discipline thereafter. Coming into Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals, one could surmise that the Stars still had a chance at this point. The series was at home, and at the game's start anyways, things still seemed like they'd be relatively competitive. However, the Stars captain apparently had other plans for the game than helping his team win a much-needed playoff contest. Around 2 minutes into the game, that was 1-0 Vegas. Ben met up with Mark Stone near center ice. The two, who firstly were in puck pursuit, began to engage. Well, it was more one-sided than anything, as Ben firstly interfered with Stone, which caused him to fall to the ice. And it was directly after that Ben cross-checked the Knights captain in the jaw while he was in a vulnerable position. Now, as you'll quickly realize, there's a lot of layers to this one. Once the play was reviewed, it was decided that Ben was going to be receiving a 5-minute major and getting ejected from the contest. However, unlike most captains in the league who try to be an example for other players to look up to, Ben took the cowardly way out. Instead of staying behind to answer questions after his team lost to Vegas 4-0, Ben left American Airlines Center entirely and could be shown driving away in his luxury SUV. The media did get to hear his thoughts about the incident though on the following day. Obviously, didn't want to take a 5-minute penalty, but when the game happens fast, emotions are high, he says. I would have liked to not fall on him and I guess use my stick as a landing point. I don't even know how my stick ended up there,
he said. Well, anyone with a working brain and eyes can clearly see Ben intentionally using the forceful extension of his arms while he's making direct eye contact with Stone. And as you'd expect, NHL player safety didn't believe a single word of his excuse of an excuse, as Ben was dealt a 2-game suspension for his actions.
In conclusion, it'll be pretty interesting to see how many of these specific jerk moments end up in the jerk moments of the year video that I do every year, and how many top them from the upcoming season. If you'd like to support me and my work, you can do so by shopping with Fanatics and by joining my Patreon as well. Links for both of those methods of support will be below if you're interested. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.